first Warhammer model I ever made was a Warwalker. This is him, or her, or it. So, I really like how my color scheme turned out, and I particularly like this one in that I like this color of green. The paint is called Gauss Blaster Green. It's kind of a mint green. It might not show up a little bit different in real life than it does on camera, but I did enjoy how much green it ended up having. The purple is a lilac, I think called Deshulu lilac. I ended up going with a lot of Citadel paints or Warhammer paints in this. And then the orange is a orange whose name I forget, but I kind of went with lighter pastel colors. I think this trio of colors is pretty not very imaginative in that it does work on a color wheel. I kind of went with greens and purples as kind of a Joker inspiration, and the orange really pulled it together and gave it a sort of 50s sci-fi B-movie look, especially as apparent on this Walker-y guy. Now in each of these videos I'm going to talk about why I chose this unit and the choices I made in putting them together and things I learned, or just things I experienced while I was making them. So why I chose this unit was I didn't. It was the fourth thing in the box, full of 3 things I knew I wanted, so suddenly Warwalker was on the menu. And specifically this one I started painting first because I didn't care about it as much, so I was less afraid of screwing it up. It's a little blurry close to the camera, but that's fine. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I think for my first job, it feels pretty good, especially from far away. The colors work. The initial appearance works pretty well. This guy is actually supposed to have a little windshield up front, but I kind of liked the look of it so much without it. It kind of made it look a little more extraterrestrial and sci-fi that I decided not to do it. And I think I'm just not going to do it. The basic process with this one, like all the ones I've been making, is a spray paint of white to provide a, oh God, what is it called? It's the foundation paint. It's base paint, priming. It was a white primer. There's a lot of different theories on how to paint. White is nice if you have light colors, which is what I have. And specifically these paints are layer paints, so they're not really designed to be super strong thing to base off of. So white spray paint is hard in that you're going to see those white spots pretty well, but I thought it was a good idea to be able for me to see it and be able to cover it up with paint later. So I decided not to have that windshield. This unit is kind of a scout unit, so it's not the strongest thing in the world. It's not like a tank, but in one way you could think of it as being, it has a little bit of a clever tricks, like it can move before the game starts. That's kind of the scout aspect of it. And while it's not the strongest thing in the world, it does have some ways to, that was me checking a text message. It does have some ways to kind of block attacks. In some ways it is a walking gun rack, so these 2 guns are its primary weapons. It has a melee attack, but that's not really why you're here. You're here for those big guns. Now those are Aeldari heavy weapons. Essentially, in some vehicles in Aeldari, in some units, you have 5 guns that come with the kit. So it has 2. It gets 1 of each of these 5 weapons. There was another thing in the box that also had that option, so I could double up what this unit had and then double up what the other unit had. I decided to go with more long-range weapons on this guy. It is a little more accurate in shooting those weapons, so those 5 guns that you get are kind of a variety of things designed to take out a variety of things. So I armed this unit with things to destroy vehicles, and this thing has a little bit more flexibility since it has 2 choices you can make. It can fire a missile that takes out like a tank, or it can fire a missile that takes out a bunch of smaller units at the same time. Now, if you're playing with friends, you don't really have to care what you glued on your vehicle. You can just tell them it's these weapons before the game starts, and it's not a big deal. So I didn't magnetize this thing to give myself choices because I didn't really like the way it looked in some videos, and it felt like something that was kind of above my skill level at this time. So I essentially armed this Warwalker with the idea that it would be firing at things from a long distance and not necessarily up in anybody's face. It does have a pilot in there, which was kind of difficult to paint. This was definitely a learning experience in paint on the inside and then go outward. A lot of the small orange details, a little bit hard to paint. Look good from afar though. I did decide for the base to make it more of an alien world, since these are aliens. And if you look closely, it's actually kind of a blue thing. I imagine like this blue sandy planet with some weird like yellows and golds to signify something alien. I ended up going with slightly different colors for my other bases, but this was the initial one. I ended up combining some blue and some white from my Vallejo kit, and some gold from there and some yellow from there too, as I didn't have some of the pastel blue I would have later on. But that's pretty much it for the Warwalker. When it came to building this thing, one thing that I learned that was pretty important that I went to do on multiple other models is that with the feet, I would glue the feet pieces onto the base, dry fitting it to get the pose or whatever, and then kind of glue upward. So I was building upward from the feet to the legs to the rest of the body. I don't remember exactly how the body came together, but that was my trick for getting this fairly large model onto the base, was kind of building upward. But that is the Warwalker. Fun unit to make. I did some recess shading that I have not done on other models too. I probably should try that some more, but if you look at some of the details, it is a little bit of a different color, purple lilac in there to make it stand out, and I kind of did the same on some of these panels as well. I like how it turned out on this model, but I should probably practice more at it with some of my other models that I have.